When the United States withdrew from Afghanistan in 2021, we left behind far too many, including our wartime allies who supported the U.S. mission in Afghanistan for 2 decades. Our Afghan partners served alongside the United States Armed Forces as translators and cultural advisors, and they provided critical combat, logistical, and technical support. They risked their lives to take on the Taliban and protect American service members. In exchange, we promised to protect them from retaliation for their service and to give them a pathway to immigration to the United States, a chance to build new, safe lives here. Relocating our Afghan allies to safety is just one part of our commitment to these courageous men and women. Anyone with the bravery to stand up to the Taliban is exactly the kind of person we would want in America. Since 2021, AfghanEvac and countless other organizations have worked to relocate and resettle nearly 200,000 eligible Afghan allies. They've used all options at their disposal to get these people to safety, such as the U.S. Refugee Admission Program, humanitarian parole, temporary protected status, and special immigrant visas. Once in the U.S., Operation Enduring Welcome has been critical to supporting their successful resettlement. These individuals and their families are rebuilding their lives in the United States. They are hardworking members of our communities who contribute to our economic prosperity. More than 60,000 still remain in Afghanistan, awaiting approval of refugee status, and more than 170,000 are awaiting special immigrant visas. They fought alongside us and are the family members and friends of Americans. It's time to bring them here. America stood by its word to support our allies after the Korean War and after the Vietnam War. It's reprehensible that we're failing our Afghan allies now. Now even Afghans who made it to the United States are at risk of losing the stability and security that they have found here. When President Trump took office, he said his administration would deport only violent, convicted criminals who make America less safe. But this administration is targeting all hardworking immigrants and has even begun to revoke the legal status of Afghans and target some for deportation. I recently visited the Otay Mesa Detention Center and met with a gentleman named Syed, who fought shoulder to shoulder with American troops in Afghanistan. Syed is being detained, and not because he broke the law. Syed was detained while following the law, when he showed up to his mandated immigration court appointment. It's outrageous. And we'll do everything we can to ensure he and other law-abiding individuals are no longer cruelly targeted for deportation after following the rules. President Trump broke America's promise to our wartime allies when he canceled legal immigration programs Afghans have relied on since the fall of Kabul. He fired members of the Afghan relocation team and included Afghanistan in his reckless travel ban. Breaking promises to our wartime allies does not make us safer. Breaking promises to our wartime allies does not make us safer. To the contrary, it makes us weaker and makes our warfighters less safe. It says that the United States is not a reliable and trustworthy partner. Why would populations help us next time we need aid abroad if this is how we treat them afterward? A bipartisan group of members in Congress are working to support our Afghan allies. I'm an original co-sponsor of the Enduring Welcome Act, which would require the Secretary of State to reestablish and appoint a leader for the Office of the Coordinator for Afghan Relocation Efforts, or CARE. CARE would facilitate the resettlement of Afghans in the United States and expedite family reunifications. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel here. This work was already happening over the course of the last 4 years. We simply want a successful agency for our operations to continue. We also need to simplify the special immigrant visa program for those who serve with and support United States troops in future international conflicts. I'm working on that with AfghanEvac to make it easier for our wartime allies to get the support that they have earned. Finally, my particular interest is this. San Diego has one of the largest populations of post-9/11 veterans in the country. Many served bravely in Afghanistan at some point in the last 20 years, where we were at war there. The effort to help our Afghan allies was started right here by one of my good friends and one of those vets, Sean Van Diver. I'm grateful today to be joined by Sean, founder and president of AfghanEvac, Vino Panajor, CEO of Catholic Charities, Diocese of San Diego, Mohammed Rahimi and Mihan Raufi from the local nonprofit Afghan Family Services. And I want to thank you all for being here. This is a very important issue for our nation's credibility and for the integrity of the San Diego veterans who were protected by these folks, stood side by side for them, and do not want us to forsake them. And now I'll turn it over to Sean. Sean?
Thanks so much, Scott. All right, folks. Really glad to be here today. My name's Sean Van Diver. I'm the president and founder of AfghanEvac. I'm going to offer some remarks that are probably a little too long. Turn it over to my friends Vino, Mihan, and Mohammed, and at the end we'll take some questions available for everybody. Thank you so much, Congressman, and good morning to everyone. I want to start by putting this into simple terms. When U.S. service members, diplomats, and aid workers went overseas to Iraq and Afghanistan in the early 2000s, we showed up with a promise. We promised the people who stood with us that we would not abandon them. Those allies who stood beside us risked everything, serving shoulder to shoulder with our troops, protecting Americans, and fighting for a chance at a better future. And through the next 20 years of war, we continued to tell those allies that the promises we made meant something. When we left Afghanistan in August of 2021, in chaos and haste, we left behind hundreds of thousands of allies. And for a moment, it looked like our promises would be broken. But thanks to people both in and out of government, the work to keep that promise didn't end when the last plane left Kabul. Instead, the United States government, hand in hand with organizations like AfghanEvac, partnered to build Enduring Welcome, an operation to relocate and resettle eligible Afghan allies. And it was the safest, most secure, legal immigration program in our country's history. Thanks to our collaborative efforts, nearly 200,000 Afghans have resettled here in the last 4 years. They're now our neighbors, our coworkers, they're part of our communities, right here in San Diego and all across our great nation. But let's be clear, the work isn't done. Around 260,000 Afghans are still in danger overseas in more than 90 countries around the world. The bulk of them, about 212,000, are stuck in Afghanistan. They're waiting for approval to come here. Relocation operations were ongoing. We were relocating 5,000 Afghans a month from Kabul to a third country and on to the United States. But on January 20th, they were suspended, leaving those allies in limbo, and now they're quite uncertain whether their path to America will ever reopen. Those who are already here are facing new threats. Programs that protected them are being canceled. Legal status is being stripped, and deportations are on the horizon. For 3.5 years, we used every tool available to bring people to safety. Overseas, the Enduring Welcome program helped move wartime allies and their family members in both consular and refugee pathways out of Afghanistan to the United States. Here at home, we've pushed for temporary protected status, extensions on humanitarian parole, additional SIVs, expedited family reunifications, and more. Every pathway was a lifeline, tailored to different groups of Afghans depending on how they served and where they served and what risks they faced. Together, they gave us the flexibility to keep people moving and keep our promises. On January 20th, those pathways were cut off, one by one, and the infrastructure behind them torn apart. Refugee resettlement for Afghans has been frozen. Refugee resettlement for everyone except for South African folks has been frozen. Family reunifications are stalled. TPS has ended, and instead of building on the progress of Enduring Welcome, the White House has dismantled it, firing the very team at the State Department whose job was to coordinate Afghan resettlement. The result is chaos, families separated, veterans watching their former interpreters trapped and in danger, being killed. I get pictures of bodies every week. Afghans in our own neighborhoods are living in fear that they might be the next one detained. President Trump could, with the stroke of a pen, restart the programs that kept our promises. He could restart relocations. He could put a stop to the campaign of terror that ICE is waging on our Afghan allies. Abandoning our Afghan allies doesn't just break a promise. It breaks faith with every American who fought beside them. And look, we're not going to stand by while this happens, right? AfghanEvac and our partners are fighting to reopen these pathways, to push Congress and the administration to do what's right. We launched Battle Buddies, a program where veterans and frontline civilians can stand with the folks that they served with while they're fighting for their lives in our immigration courts and at their immigration appointments. We've been pushing for the Afghan Adjustment Act and the Enduring Welcome Act, both of which are part of that fight. Clear, practical solutions that will bring stability back to the system and humanity back to our policies. We know how to do this. We know it works. What we need now is the political courage to turn the lights back on. The Enduring Welcome Act, which Congressman Peters just talked about, would restart and strengthen the office that coordinated Afghan resettlement and family reunification. The Office of the Coordinator for Afghan Relocation Efforts, or CARE, which was working. It was regularly flying folks out. We talked about it just a moment ago, right? We were moving vulnerable people out of harm's way, keeping families together, making sure communities like ours had the support that they needed, all while maintaining our national security. We don't need to reinvent the wheel, like Congressman Peters said. We just need to get the wheel turning again. This isn't a partisan issue. Democrats and Republicans alike have backed these ideas for the last 4 years, for the last 20 years, because they understand two simple truths. America must keep its promises, and our allies make us stronger. Breaking these promises not only hurts Afghan families, it sends a signal to the world that the United States cannot be trusted, and that makes every future mission, every future service member less safe. Here in San Diego, we know it firsthand, right? We have the largest concentration of military forces in the world. We have one of the largest veterans populations in the country. Many of the veterans and service members who live here served in Afghanistan. We understand what it means to stand by those who stood by us. And AfghanEvac was born right here in this community. The people and organizations from all over San Diego have been extraordinary partners in this critical work, both on the ground here helping Afghans that arrive on our shores and all over the country and the globe. Congressman Peters has been with us since the very beginning, ensuring that Afghans here and abroad have a voice in Congress, elevating their plight and pushing for progress. The rest of the San Diego delegation has been there too, with Rep. Juan Vargas working closely to assist with the resettlement of Afghan women judges. Reps Levin and Jacobs have been leveraging their committee assignments to push for better outcomes for Afghans and veterans alike. And not just the federal delegation has stepped up. We've seen at both the municipal and county levels consistent and determined effort to make sure that Afghans have the resources and support they need. At the City of San Diego, they added the Afghan Adjustment Act to their legislative platform for the past several years. The County of San Diego had an Afghan task force. And with local partners like Catholic Charities and Afghan Family Services, we've proven that Americans and San Diegans want to do right by our allies. So today is about sending a clear message. Congress must act. The President must act. We have the tools, we have the laws, and we have the precedent to keep our promises. What's missing is the political will from the executive branch. The Afghan Adjustment Act and the Enduring Welcome Act are our chances to fix that, to keep faith with those who believed in us, to show the world that America honors its word. This is not complicated. We made a promise. Now it's time to keep it. It's not charity. It's about national security. Thank you. And now I'm going to hand things off so we can hear from some more of the incredible leaders and partners who are doing this work every single day. And first up, we have Vino Pajanor from Catholic Charities. Vino?
Thank you, Sean. I'm Vino Pajanor. I'm the CEO of Catholic Charities here in the Diocese of San Diego that covers both San Diego and Imperial County. Good morning, and thank you, Congressman Peters, for your leadership and for convening us here aboard the USS Midway. We gather not only to speak about policy, but to uphold a promise. At Catholic Charities, our faith teaches that every person is made in the image of God and worthy of protection. Since the fall of Kabul in 2021, Catholic Charities helps resettle thousands of Afghan allies, people who stood with our troops and believed America would stand with them in return. Our commitment is reflected in two major programs: Afghan Support and Investment Program, which provides housing and employment support to over 4,000 Afghan households, and the Afghan Newcomer Support Program within the state of California, which fills the gaps left by the federal cuts, offering legal aid, housing, and social services to over 500 refugees right here in San Diego. Recent federal changes to enduring welcome and temporary protected status threaten family unity and delay reunifications. These shifts inject fear into lives already marked by sacrifice. Catholic social teaching calls us to uphold human dignity, family unity, and solidarity. In San Diego, we have seen the power of welcome. Children back in school, parents working, veterans reunited with their interpreters and allies. This is not about partnership. It's about faithfulness to our values of our allies and the best of America. Mercy is, in public life, means keeping promises. Congressman Peters, thank you for standing with our Afghan neighbors. To our Afghan friends, you are not alone. To our leaders, let us act with urgency worthy of this moment. May our decision today ensure that justice and mercy meet, and that every Afghan ally seeking refuge finds not a closed door, but a community ready to say, welcome home. Thank you. Sean, once again.
Thank you so much, Vino, for all of that. That was really incredible. Next up, we have Dr. Mohammed Rahimi from Afghan Family Services. One really important, I think, footnote here about Dr. Rahimi is that his parents were the beneficiaries of a care relocation. They came here through this program that we're talking about. And there's a lot of other folks like him out there that need this support. Dr. Rahimi?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, Sean Van Diver. Good morning, everyone. First, thank you, Congressman Scott Peters, for co-sponsoring the Enduring Welcome Act. Also, thanks to Catholic Charities of San Diego and AfghanEvac for their ongoing support and advocacy for our Afghan communities and Afghan allies. It is deeply unfortunate and disappointing to say that 4 years after the fall of the government in Afghanistan, we still have allies left in that country. When we say allies, those are the people who supported the U.S. government from 2001 to 2021. Now they are left behind in Afghanistan, and they are at risk of retaliation. Previously, the slow processing of Afghan immigration cases, and now the suspension of refugee programs or travel ban that prevented Afghan allies and their families from coming to the United States affected all of us, Afghan American communities, newly arrived Afghans in California and across the country, personally, professionally, and emotionally. I say personally because Afghan Americans and Afghan allies who are in this country, they have personal and family ties with those allies who are left behind in Afghanistan. I say professionally, for most Afghan allies who came to this country, they received temporary status and work authorization. Now for most of them, this temporary status and their work authorization are expired or will expire soon. Without legal status, without valid work authorization, they lose their job or they become ineligible for employment. I say emotionally because right now we see a high level of fear, insecurity, uncertainty, and hopelessness in our communities, not only in California, but across the country. Why? Because Afghan allies see that. They feel that they are at risk of detention and deportation. They're Afghans who supported the U.S. mission for more than 20 years in Afghanistan. And now, what they see, what they feel, it's just ignorance. And they believe that the Trump administration turned its back on them. In brief, those Afghan allies who are left behind in Afghanistan, they are at risk of retaliation. Those Afghan allies who are evacuated to the United States, they are at risk of detention and deportation. This situation caused a high level of depression, anxiety, uncertainty, insecurity, and hopelessness because there is no clear channel from the government to see what's happening, how can we ask for help, and how these Afghan allies can be rescued. Therefore, I call on the U.S. Congress to pass the Enduring Welcome Act as soon as possible. I also call on the Trump administration to exempt Afghan allies and their families from its travel ban and take necessary initiatives to expedite the process of immigration and reunification cases for Afghan allies. Afghan allies who supported the U.S. government, who were part of the mission, the U.S. mission in Afghanistan from 2001 to 2021. Now they're left behind in Afghanistan with no support, with no protection. So these Afghan allies deserve the U.S. government's support, attention, and protection. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rahimi. You heard a lot about the depression, the anxiety, how people are feeling, and a lot of that comes from the uncertainty. The United States government is not giving any information to our wartime allies, which is something that we've worked with the previous administration on to sort of fix their communications, and now they've sort of thrown all of that to the side. In the absence of clear communications, it's left to the real-life superheroes. In San Diego, we see a lot of superheroes here, right? We have Comic-Con. In our line of work, the superheroes that we see are the immigration attorneys that are every day stepping up to putting on their capes and helping immigrants, Afghans, and others to navigate these complex processes with no forward-leaning communication. So I'm really excited today to introduce Mihan Raufi.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Sean. Thank you, Dr. Rahimi. Thank you. Thank you, Congressman Peters and Vino. Today, I want to speak with urgency and clarity about the plight of Afghan allies stranded abroad and the impact of recently imposed policies on their path to safety. The United States passed 3 key pathways to honor our commitment: the United States Refugee Admissions Program, the Special Immigrant Visa Program, and temporary protective status, as well as the CARE Act and humanitarian paroles. Each was intended to provide Afghans who helped us and offer freedom from persecution. Under U.S. RAP, eligible Afghans, whether through P1 or P2 designations, were meant to be resettled in the United States. But that pathway has been suspended nationwide under the executive order, halting the travel of Afghans who are already vetted and approved. Thousands remain stranded in third countries with no word on when travel will resume. The SIV program, which still technically is operational, the backlog is overwhelming. Between January and March of 2025, only a handful of SIVs were issued, while tens of thousands of applicants are still waiting COM approval, also known as Chief of Admission Approval. They're still waiting for their review of SIV applications, their interviews, and their final decisions. TPS for Afghans, which many rely already here on to live and contribute safely, was terminated in July, placing thousands of Afghans at risk of deportation. They face uncertainty and fear for their children's future. And I can say this personally because I do see Afghans on a daily basis. I am Afghan, first of all, and they're faced with, like Dr. Rahimi said, anxiety and depression because they don't know what the future holds for them, and they don't know what the future holds for their children. We are seeing deeply troubling enforcement trends. ICE has been detaining Afghans who already have SIV approvals, who are waiting their green cards, who are waiting their asylum approvals, and they're labeling them as national security risks without evidence. One such example are 2 former Afghan interpreters who are legally in the United States. They are now held in detention, and this is unjust. It is a betrayal of our own promises. And lastly, I want to thank AfghanEvac and Battle Buddies for their continued support, and I hope that one day Afghans do not have to be faced with uncertainty and be scared of what the future holds for them. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mihan.
Thank you. Just to conclude, first of all, I want to thank the Midway for allowing this space. And this venue is not a mistake. We chose this venue because we want to remember the thousands and thousands of heroes who risked their lives on this very ship in support of our country. And heroes just like them risked their lives in Afghanistan and the Middle East over the last 2.5 decades. These are the people that helped them stay safe. These Afghan allies are the people that interpreted for them, helped them watch out for danger, and even fought alongside them. We made a promise to them. We need to keep that promise. I think everyone understands that. We just got to get some folks in Washington to do a better job of that. San Diego gets it, and we want to thank all the people who've come to speak on the behalf of these great American allies who are in Afghanistan, and we'd be happy to take questions. Sir?
My question is, last month President Trump said that he supported Afghan allies. He said he supported keeping the promises that were made. Why isn't the Speaker and majority in the Senate fast-tracked in this legislation?
It's a great question. So, obviously we hear a lot from the President that he's kind of an off-the-cuff guy, and I'm glad to hear that he personally thinks it's a good idea. All he has to do is direct folks to reopen CARE, get that operation going again. I hope that the Speaker heard that message because we have bipartisan support for the two bills we referred to. We could pass those in September, send them to the President's desk, and get them signed. I know that the Speaker has been shy about confronting Trump, but here is a case where apparently he agrees with us. So I hope that message gets through and that we carry through and get these bills passed in September.
Can I add one thing?
Sure.
We, during the exchange you're talking about there, the President was asked about various groups of Afghan allies. One group that we didn't mention up here are the 1,450 people that are stuck in Camp Asaliya in Doha. There are 900 refugees, or 1,200 refugees and about 250 consular track folks who, including 200 family of active duty U.S. military. Now, we believe that the President cares about this because of the exchange that you were talking about. It was with Pablo Manriquez from Migrant Insider. He had tweeted out also that he wanted to save the 40 or so Afghans that were stuck in the United Arab Emirates, and he didn't do that. He allowed them to leave, and they've gone to Rwanda, where they're processing, where they've got a little bit more time now. But we do understand that what he did do was prevent them from being deported back to Afghanistan, and that's what we're trying to avoid here. All right. Any other questions?
We're all around.
Okay, go for it.
Take this. All right. Oh, sure. One more? Yeah, ma'am. Okay, I'm going to repeat the question and then turn it over to my friends. What are the impacts that the Afghans have had in San Diego? What would be the effect of losing their input and possibly from deportation or from not getting more here?
Sure. So I'll start and then we'll pass it around. Look, Afghans that have come here to this country have done extraordinary things, right? To San Diego, to this country, and then also right here in San Diego. We've got people who are starting businesses. We've got new restaurants, some of the most delicious Afghan food I've ever had out in El Cajon. There's extraordinary civic engagement from the Afghan community, which you're about to see when I turn it over to Dr. Rahimi to talk about what he's seeing across the Afghan community. We're seeing Afghans who have arrived here turn around and take jobs, helping newly arrived refugees, not just Afghans, but all sorts of immigrants, and start their own organizations to help. I think I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Rahimi, and then, Vino, if you want to go.
That's a great question, but let me begin by saying this. I worked as an attorney for U.S. Army in Afghanistan before coming to this country. So when we talk about the risk, leaving Afghan allies behind, and when we say that they are at risk of retaliation, we mean it. I see it, I feel it because I was in that position once, more than 10 years ago. But today, as a proud Afghan American, we have one goal. We have one thing in mind all the time, and that is how to contribute to the greatness of the United States, to the greatness of California, and to the greatness of San Diego. We do that by our active presence, with our active civic engagement and participation in the community in this city. And like Sean Van Diver, the president of AfghanEvac, said, we have hundreds of Afghan immigrants who work with the U.S. Army, came to this country here in San Diego, in Sacramento, in California. They have businesses. They have hundreds of employees. They're paying taxes. And actively, every day in their life, they're making this state and city great, nice, stronger, happier. That's the impact that we are making. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sean and Dr. Mohammed, for mentioning this. On Catholic Charities' behalf, it's great to be on the USS Midway. So on Catholic Charities' side, we have employees who are AfghanEvacs themselves. They have come in and they've started helping their own through the two programs I mentioned, but they're also ingrained into other programs within Catholic Charities. We have also in this last year started a cohort for women entrepreneurs who want to start their small businesses. And in that program, there are a handful of Afghan women who want to learn how to start micro enterprises and grow. So they're not only here for employment, but they're also trying to contribute, and they have been contributing to our local economy. As Sean mentioned, you got some of the best restaurants that are run here. You want to have a good taste, go there. I'm from India originally. I immigrated from India, but I go to an Afghani restaurant, I know the food is delicious over there because they make quality food, they're proud of their heritage, but they're also claiming who they are now, that they are seeing America, they want to be American, and we as Americans have to support that. Thank you.
All right, folks, we're going to close it out here in a minute. I do want to make one more point. You heard a lot about what Afghans are contributing here. We didn't talk about Afghan women and girls. If women and girls get sent back, their lives are over. If they have a relationship with the United States, that's surefire imprisonment, rape, torture, death. Afghanistan is the most restrictive place for women and girls. So there's a lot of contributions that women and girls are making here in the San Diego region, and if we send them back, their lives are over. Thank you, everybody, for showing up today. Thank you, Congressman Peters, for bringing us together. Thank you, Vino. Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you, Mihan. And thank you to everybody who might be watching this that has contributed to this mission in any way. We're all around for interviews afterward, but we're going to close it out today. Thank you.